When things got tough, we lifted each other up. When one of us fell, the other was there to pick them up. And when one of us had a victory, we both celebrated. It was a marriage built on honor and respect. And even through tough times, it was really tough, we made it work. We were committed to each other through good times and bad. We moved away from our families in Indiana and began to build our life here in Milwaukee. He was a full-time economics professor at Marquette University, and I was at home full-time with our 3 kids. Even though I wasn't contributing to the household monetarily, as the true economist that he was, Joe would constantly articulate to me the marginal benefit and the added value that I brought to his life and to our home by making that my full-time job. No matter what, he always made sure that I knew my worth as a partner, as a mother, and as a person. In January of 2006, Joe was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, and I was terrified that I would lose him. His fight was beyond difficult and incredibly harsh on his body. But after 5 months of extremely aggressive treatments, he was declared cancer-free. In 2014, Joe underwent 2 days of an invasive back surgery to try and relieve some of the pain associated with the damage that chemotherapy had done to his body. Another rough procedure that led to a pulmonary embolism, and again, I thought I was going to lose him. He came through these health difficulties a little bruised and scarred, but together we moved forward in life. We saw our kids through school and watched all of them begin careers that they were passionate about. We celebrated their marriages and welcomed our new daughter and son-in-law with open arms. We were empty nesters, enjoying our next phase in life together in our new home. Joe became the dean of the College of Business at Marquette, and I had never seen him happier. He was working in a job that he loved, at a place that he loved. On the morning of February 11th, 2020, as he was leaving for work, he told me that he'd be late coming home because he would be attending and speaking at a business dinner at the Wisconsin Club. That was the last time I saw him. Later that evening, as I was checking my location app to see if Joe was on his way home, and I wondered who he might be having such a long conversation with outside the Wisconsin Club. After looking several times, he was still there. An hour later, my doorbell rang, and I saw 3 police officers and a priest standing outside my door. And that was the moment that my world came crashing down. At around 8 p.m. that evening, as he was leaving the dinner, a colleague offered to drive him to his car. He was parked near his office on campus. He turned down the ride, saying no, he loved the walk. He wanted to enjoy walking on campus. A few minutes later, as he entered the crosswalk on 10th Street along the south side of Wisconsin Avenue, and according to the criminal complaint, video captured the defendant's vehicle, and I quote, accelerating rapidly, unquote, while traveling north on 10th Street. The defendant's vehicle struck Joe, threw him into the air, and all the way across Wisconsin Avenue. He sustained multiple blunt force injuries to his head, neck, spinal cord, vertebrae, lungs, pelvis, abdomen, and all of his extremities. The first person who went to his aid was an off-duty police officer who later stated that he was not breathing when he got there. I only pray that he lost consciousness upon impact and that he did not suffer the unbelievable pain of the multitude of injuries to his body from such a devastating impact. While my husband lay dead in the street on that cold February night, the defendant and his girlfriend were working on the lie that they would tell the police. The defendant convinced his girlfriend to assert that she was the one driving because his license had been revoked and he was still under court supervision. The police informed me that night that there was a strong smell of burning cannabis coming from the defendant's vehicle. Since he lied and said he was the passenger, the police did not test him for substances. They only tested her. I firmly believe that if he had been tested that night, this case would look much different today. The defendant did whatever he could to save himself. He convinced his girlfriend to take the fall for the death of my husband. Your Honor, I believe the defendant is a danger to public safety. He's shown zero regard for the law, the probationary restrictions of sobriety, and seems to lack the ability to adhere to the constraints that court-ordered supervision imposes. He drives cars as an employee for his mother's business, Equitable Auto, despite both of them knowing full well that his license had been revoked. But not only was he illegally operating a car, I believe he was doing so under the influence of and in the presence of illegal drugs that impair one's coordination, reaction time, memory, and judgment. Additionally, neither the defendant nor the owner of the vehicle, Equitable Auto, obtained any type of automobile insurance, which is also against Wisconsin law. What is clear from the criminal complaint and from Mr. Jones' history of traffic violations is that he has consistently and consciously chosen to defy the legal repercussions of his actions and the rule of law. Just 2 months ago in January, he was ticketed for driving 23 miles per hour over the speed limit on the freeway. Not only was he driving without a license when he killed Joe, he continued to drive after being released from jail when he drove to his girlfriend's house to convince her to stick to the story that she had been the one driving that night. It is illegal in the state of Wisconsin to fail to stop for a pedestrian crossing in a crosswalk. A pedestrian in a crosswalk has the right of way, period. It is not an option for drivers to stop or not stop. They are obligated by law to yield or stop. This casualty happened not only on a busy city street, but on a college campus where thousands of students, faculty, and staff are walking to classes, meetings, and appointments every day and every night. His careless actions and disregard for the law and public safety clearly demonstrate that he has no regret or remorse for what his actions have done to all of us who knew and loved my husband. Your Honor, far too many people have been injured or killed on the streets of Milwaukee at the hands of reckless, distracted, uninsured drivers with no regard for the damage that they've caused from behind the wheel of a 3,000-pound vehicle. My husband was a selfless man. What he did for his community in public, he did tenfold for his family in private. He was the greatest love I ever knew. He was the only love I ever knew. And now I have to find my way without him. My children have to find their way without him. Every night I go to sleep with an empty space next to me. And that's the price that I have to pay for someone else's careless actions. It's the feeling that knowing the person you love most in the world will never be there again when you wake up in the morning. And when I have to lie awake at night and think about how this could have been preventable, that feeling becomes unbearable. Our lives will go on as they have every day since Joe was killed. 18 days ago, my son Bill and his wife Angela gave birth to our first grandchild. She's named Josephine, after the grandfather that she will never meet. My daughter Lee is thriving and advancing in her career. Joe would have been so proud of her, but she'll never get to hear him say that. My youngest son Wesley has become the man his father always knew he would, a kind and loving soul who has worked so hard to get where he is now. He will also not get to hear his dad tell him. I know they will all continue to flourish without Joe, but I also know something will always be missing. And for that, my heart breaks for my children. And a pain like that, a mother can't fix. There's no judgment in the world that will bring Joe back, but there is a path toward justice. And I ask you, Your Honor, that you help us find our way. I ask that you make the decision today that respects not only my husband, but me and my children. Your Honor, I implore you to make an example out of this situation and show what happens to reckless drivers who maim, injure, and thoughtlessly take the lives of pedestrians on the streets of this city. My family and I do not want another family to endure the horrible pain that we have suffered after losing someone so loved and cherished in such a tragic and senseless way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.